TCWEEK Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Hi, you guys. I really can't see you guys. Oh, that's strange. Usually I can make eye contact with an audience, and that's very helpful. It's so good to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Jen, for that wonderful introduction. Today I actually had a chance to have a duo dance party at Zappos. Apparently you have to have a dance-off when you encounter another tour group to decide who gets to pass. And we won. So I was pretty excited about it. Yes, tonight I'm going to chat with you guys about how to foster serendipitous collisions without being creepy and without being calculating. And I was one of those last-minute additions, so I was pretty excited and thought, what is really important to this audience? And the word that I keep hearing, I heard it at South by Southwest V2V in August. I heard it earlier this summer when I started to have the Downtown Project on my radar, was this concept of collisions. And a lot of people do have sort of a negative view of networking and going out and getting clients or recruiting employees and doing it in this kind of weird way, or making sales. And the thing about serendipitous collisions is that they are happy and they are by chance, and they can spawn amazing, amazing, amazing opportunities. In fact, in the past year and a half, I can attribute $250,000, that's $250,000, and my soon-to-be husband to serendipitous collisions. So how many of you like being alone at a cocktail party? I can't see you, so I'm going to dip. Oh, that's two of you. Okay. How many of you enjoy talking to strangers about the weather? A few of you. Okay. Okay. I don't judge. How many of you enjoy making cold calls to ask for business or money? No. Okay. So, given that tee up, how many of you would like to learn how to create and foster serendipitous collisions without being the creepster in the room? All right, yes. All right, that's what we're going to do today. So, in order to have serendipitous collisions, I have boiled it down to about 5 things. Real quick, they are: be open, do you, take risks. I know there's one that comes after that. I'm going to say it is draw blood. You're like, what? And then the final is don't give a flip. All right, so I might change up the order of those, but we're going to go through those, and I'm going to give you examples and ways that you can implement those to foster your own serendipitous collisions. Now, I do want to preface this with, some people do this naturally, and I am lucky to be one of those people. You might not know this, but I am an introvert. Sorry, Mike. I like to spend a lot of time by myself, and I'm also the girl who can be in Africa and run into someone I know. When I got to Las Vegas, or actually no, before I even left for Las Vegas, I was at the airport, ran into a girl I know who I met in the crosswalk crossing Houston in Soho a couple weeks earlier. And then when I got here to Las Vegas, I was sitting at the Beat, another place for fabulous serendipitous collisions, and I ran into one of my early clients who's opening a division of her spa and salon here. It's called Bombshell. It's going to open in roughly July, and it's really exciting. All because I have been able to codify and repeat these principles. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the first one: you do you. You've heard that before. That advice came from my little brother. He's 30, and I call him my consigliere. He's very wise. And he said, look, Keeks, that's my nickname, you do you. Because I was getting all FOMO on myself, and I was running around the country, literally going to all these conferences and events. I needed to go to this meetup and that networking event because I was like, oh, I got to get business, right? And he said, what are you doing? Just you do you. For me, that means going to some yoga, maybe going to a tea shop. That means going to check out that vintage sparkly clothing stuff. And just doing me, doing the things that I like to do. Yes, I like to go to the occasional tech, code-off, Clearly, I don't know that much about it because I can't even say the word. But for the most part, I like to go to things that interest me. I want to go to a yoga retreat. And he said, you do those things, and the magic will happen. As a result, I've got a client I can attribute 6 figures of business to because I was at a bar that I like, drinking a cocktail I like. I was me doing me. And then I turned him into a client. So that's one of the most important things that you can do, is you just have to be yourself. Do not feel like you have to go to the litany of events that everyone else is going to. Do the things that you care about. That passion will come out, and other people will be attracted to you just because of that. Now, the second thing that is really important after you're doing your own thing is that you have to be open at these events where you're doing you. And being open in this world is sometimes a little scary. I live in New York City now. I am on the subway or walking down the street, and people don't even make eye contact. They go around like this. There's like a shield in front of their eyes. No one smiles at one another. I'm from the South. And there are still places where I drive where when I'm driving down the road, the other driver waves. Okay, that doesn't happen for us a lot in our modern world. But in order to have these serendipitous collisions, we have to be open. And being open requires 2 things. It requires being emotionally open. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. It also requires being physically open. So what does that mean? Being physically open means not standing like this. You have to have an open stance. You could stand like this. This is a power stance. And guys, this is like real. If you want to practice it, you can. It means having usually not legs crossed, actually. You know how a little 5-year-old stands? Anybody got a 5-year-old? Little 5-year-olds stand like this. Chest open, arms down, feet solid on the ground. They are some of the most open human beings in the world. Any idea? They're like, yeah. When you are an innovator, when you're a creator, and when you want to attract people who are interested in being innovative and creative, be open. Start with your body, start with your physiology, and the rest is going to start to follow. Okay, another way to be open, you have to be emotionally available. If you haven't watched the TED Talk from Brené Brown about vulnerability, please do. I'm not going to get into all that stuff about vulnerability other than to say that people can tell when you're making a snap judgment about them. I don't know how many times we hear about these amazing stories where, you know, I started talking to someone on the bus next to me, and Home Slice was wearing like some cut-off jeans and some flip-flops, and I'm thinking, who's this dude? And it turns out that he's like the millionaire next door. And he's like, oh, I want to invest in your client. Hell yeah, that's awesome. But if I had jumped to a conclusion about that guy because of what he looked like and what he was packaged in, we wouldn't have had the opportunity in the first place for a serendipitous collision. So be open. Be open physically. Be open emotionally. And go watch that TED Talk with Brené Brown. Okay, so you're doing you. You understand how to be open and you're practicing it. It doesn't hurt to breathe either. Like deep breaths. And what's the next step? The next step really is to take risks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story from Fashion Week in New York City. Fashion Week is this like unbelievable thing where all the people put on their ego in the form of like crazy clothes that cost tens of thousands of dollars, and they strut around and they get photographed and they go to parties where they're around all kinds of other people doing the exact same thing, trying to get attention. And it's crazy town. And I went to Fashion Week only one day this year because I wasn't super into it, but I went with this 15-year-old blogger. This girl makes more money than a lot of adults I know blogging. She is 15. She writes about fashion. She said, hey, Lauren, do you want to come to this thing with me? I said, sure, that'd be fun. I'd love to go with you. And while we're at this one event, I see the designer like in the mix, in the people, and I drag Alexa over there. And I'm like, come on, come on. And she's like, oh my gosh, because she's a 15-year-old girl. Like, she's an adolescent, she's a little freaked out. And I'm like, come on. And I go over and I say, hey, Amy, this is Alexa. She's a 15-year-old blogger. She's amazing. And they start talking, and it sparked this thing. Alexa is now, she's going to London Fashion Week. It's getting paid for. She is going to collaborate with Alice and Olivia, this great contemporary brand, because people, I took a risk. I took the risk of going to something that I was like not super into, and then going up to someone who's kind of a big deal and being like, hey, here's my friend. And it worked. It worked. And it continued to work the rest of the night. And Alexa, by the end of the night, was like, how do you do that? how do you pick the right people to talk to? And a lot of it's chance, some of it's observation, but it's about taking the risk. So I'm doing me, I'm being open, I'm taking the risk, but you can't take those risks unless you do something that's really important. And that really important thing is not given a flip what people think about you. Buddhists have a thing called non-attachment, where you're not attached to outcome, and that's great. It's great to go into something like a talk and not be attached to what happens, right? You know, if I puke because I'm really nervous, no big deal. But this is deeper than that. Not giving a flip what people think about you is really about being so strong in who you are that it doesn't matter how other people respond to you. I'm going to repeat that in a different way. Your value, your self-worth, is no longer pegged to how other people respond to you. So whether or not they respond, you still get to stand strong in who you are and what you bring to the table. That is the essence of not giving a flip what people think about you. And it is essential when you're moving around in the world, when you're trying to find investors, when you're trying to find a co-founder, when you're trying to find clients, when you're trying to find friends, for crying out loud. You must disconnect who you are and your self-worth from how people respond. Because there's always going to be the right person for you, the right investor, the right partner, the right client. And if someone doesn't vibe with you, cool. Let them go on their way, no judgment, and it's fine. So once you're doing those things and you're starting to realize like, oh, I can go out and I can take risks and I can be open, and it really doesn't matter if it results in something like a huge deal. Maybe I make a friend. Maybe I realize that, oh, we're probably not going to go have a beer after this. You know, maybe Zappos isn't going to hire me because they don't want to get a beer at Gold Spike. That's okay. I'm going to go find the place that does want to get a beer with me. The final piece, once you've taken that risk and you're face to face with someone who's completely new, is what I call drawing blood. And that's a little dramatic, but drawing blood means more than scratch the surface. Don't talk about the weather. And that gets back a little bit to vulnerability. I'll show you yours, you show me mine. Or wait, I totally flipped that. I'll show you mine, you show me yours. So when you start to get beyond the pleasantries, like we don't want I'll give you an example of this, and it was really actually embarrassing for me. I was at a party, I was talking to this guy, he had recently moved back to New York, he was from New York, and he mentioned something, he said, how did you get here? I was like, oh, I drove. He was like, oh, you have a car in the city? I was like, yeah, I'm kind of attached to my car, and I want to keep it in the city. And so we started talking, we just like kept talking about the car, and he said at one point, and I so respect this, he said, can we change the subject? And I was like, thank you, oh my gosh. And I was also really embarrassed that we had spent like 3 minutes talking about my old 4Runner, which for the record is a classic one and awesome. But it was a really refreshing moment in the conversation because that's at the point that we got real. And we don't do that enough. I want you to draw blood. I want you to do more than just scratch the surface so that you can have serendipitous collisions that actually result in something. Because if you don't know that that person loves the same obscure indie band and that you guys are going to the same concert 6 months from now, because you didn't actually go there in your conversation, then you will have lost that opportunity. And I don't want you to lose those opportunities. So with that, in one word, I call that concept of fostering serendipitous collisions, I call it magnetism. Simple. You can tweet me at magnetism factor. And I just want you to practice one of those things this evening. Pick one and start implementing that and see what happens in your own life. I can't guarantee you that you will make $250,000 and meet the man of your dreams, but I hope you get somewhere close to that. And please tweet me when you have an awesome collision and want to share. Thank you.